Hello, Inform Scotland followers and friends. I have a hair appointment today. Thank goodness. I'm not enjoying life in Nicola Sturgeon's Scotland where I can't get a haircut for months on end. So you will hardly recognise me the next time you see me in a video. So there's a new crisis in Scotland today. Glasgow and the Indian variant. I don't know, guys and girls. People were getting in touch with me again today. You must get in touch with me with the news because I don't see the news. I don't have time. And instantly, almost, I see that BBC Red now and I get chest pain because their reporting is just so wild, so negative. I can't stand it. So you have to send me the news or I won't see it. Don't be shy. Pass it on. A new stranger texted me this morning and I really appreciate her doing that. Thank you very much. Even though it was news that made me very cross again. So basically the stats look fine today, as usual. Positive tests in Scotland have gone up very slightly. There were a lot of tests today though, so tests were up 68% compared to yesterday, but positives were only up 45%, so that's quite an important distinction. A lot of the tests again were NHS, so this seems to be the split is 67%, 33% NHS community, so that seems to be a fairly consistent proportion now, but the positive percentage rate is down, both including the repeat tests and the first time tests. Regional data look absolutely fine. Everywhere's really low. Everywhere was a bit higher than yesterday, but again, we have more positives because we did more tests, so there's nothing to worry about there. So positivity has turned up like very slightly, but it's still hovering around 1%. Positive tests have gone up very slightly. Newly tested individuals has risen, and this does make my heart sink. This is the increase in asymptomatic testing going on now. The more asymptomatic people you test, the more false positives you're going to get. Some of those asymptomatic people will be hosting the virus, SARS-CoV-2. Some of them won't. They'll just have a random positive. Anyway, if people aren't sick, I still don't understand this, right? So asymptomatic transmission in the home accounts for 0.7% of cases. You can look up the article from yesterday on the website about the vaccine information leaflet. It has that reference in there. I think it's a Journal of American Medicine article, if memory serves me. So asymptomatic people just are not a big transmission risk. If they're asymptomatic and they're not sick, it implies that their immune system is dealing with the virus just fine. They're not going to end up in hospital. I genuinely don't understand why we are still a year on concerned about asymptomatic people at all. So anyway, we're doing all this asymptomatic testing. I think there's been a lot of testing in Glasgow. The Pollock Shields area seems to be a particular area of concern. I'm going to speak about that in a moment. But anyway, we've got these newly tested individuals rising, and that's a worry to me, to be honest, because we will never see a drop in positives if we don't stop testing so many asymptomatic people. I've put in a graph here that shows that the hospital occupancy is at 65 today. I think this is the floor. We are testing patients regularly still in hospitals, so again, you will always find some positives if you're doing testing. I'm not saying that they don't have COVID, not at all. They won't all be false positives, but a lot of them could be. We just don't know. But the point is the level of hospital occupancy is now matching what it was in the summer last year, and I think it can't get any lower than this. It can only go up. unless we stop testing hospital patients all the time. Greater Glasgow and Clyde positive tests and Grampian tests I've included in the graphs. Grampian is absolutely flat. Murray is in Grampian. I think it's starting to, I mean, there was a sort of a tiny little rise and it's coming back down now. The Greater Glasgow and Clyde positive test you can see rising. Now, the person who texted me this morning, very kindly, I really appreciate it, she was telling me about Pollux Shields. This was before 7 o'clock this morning, and she was saying, how can there be 572 cases per 100,000 or something? That was what was being reported for Pollux Shields. Now, I spoke about this. I don't know how many of you listened, but I was on the Richie Allen show last night and I gave an illustration of how this can happen. There are not 100,000 people living in Pollux Shields. I don't actually know what the population of Pollux Shields will be, and I'm not quite sure what that region encompasses. I don't have time to look it up just now. But let's say there were 10,000 people living in Pollux Shields. That would mean that you had 57.2 positive tests coming out of Pollux Shields. And that's multiplied by 10 to give you your rate per 100,000. Now, the thing is, if you're using that to compare regions, it's not really fair because a region has a fixed population, but the number of tests being carried out isn't fixed. So if you do more tests in a small region than in a large region, which can happen if you're doing sort of this like surge testing is what Richie Allen called it last night. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if we use that terminology in Scotland, but if you sort of swoop into a region and do a whole load of tests, well, you're going to get more positives. You're looking for virus. You would expect to find it. The more testing you do, the more you find. And the population, though, remains fixed. So especially if the population is much less than 100,000, you can end up having your results extrapolated and it just looks a bit negative. It's really not helpful. On the website, we got a comment from somebody about Pollux Shields in particular, and I'm going to have a wee bit of a think about what this person said. I did approve the comment so people can see it. I'm not quite sure that I agree necessarily with the comment about houses of, like there being big families in one house doing a lot of transmitting. Transmission does mainly happen in the home or in hospitals or care homes. That's definitely true. But even there, we don't see a lot of transmission. So I'm really not sure. And I definitely don't know about this travelling to India thing. I'm not sure. I think that we shouldn't be concentrating on variants at all. Basically, I don't understand why we're even talking about that. I might reply, or somebody else from the website might reply to that comment if they have any thoughts. I have this sort of sinking feeling that NHS tests are going to be quite high this week again. And then I've changed the hospital occupancy by region graph to make the x-axis shorter, or like over a smaller time frame, because I wanted to, the hospital occupancy is now so low, it's miles below the peak in the winter, and so you can't really see the detail, but I just wanted to show you, like, we're concerned about Murray, but hospital occupancy in Grampian has come down from 13 at its peak recently, is that right? Yeah. It went down to 11 and then it remained there for a few days and now it's down to 10. So we are not seeing our hospitals filling up due to the Murray outbreak, and Glasgow, where the hospital numbers have been up slightly recently, they've started to come down quite quickly as well, and Lanarkshire is falling, trending down. Lothian has gone up a little and it's flattened again. And then there's the last graph is about vaccination. So that trend continues. This reduction in second doses is quite striking now. I don't know what's going on there. I think it's quite a complicated thing. You can see peak in first doses, and I suppose we should really look at the trend, like how far behind the peak in second doses is, and maybe it should follow the first doses trend line. So maybe it'll start to pick up again. I don't know if people aren't taking up their second doses. It could be a number of complicated issues there, but that's the situation. I'm trying to panic. I'm trying to get in the heads of the people who are panicking about all this stuff, but I just can't. I don't understand why we are so concerned. I understand COVID's a serious virus, but we are not living in a magical wonderland where people never get sick. We cannot create a situation in Scotland where nobody ever tests positive for any virus. I don't know. If people aren't sick, I think that's great news. And people don't seem to be sick in any great numbers. A wee message came through while I was talking. You might have noticed that flash of distraction that happened there. I think we've got a new article out. More testing in Murray, it's called. And our Bouncing Kitten contributor, who is such an excellent data analyst, a very experienced scientist who works in this sort of field, and he's just continuing to tell the story of Murray, which is that nothing really is happening there. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to go and get ready now for my haircut, and like I say, tomorrow maybe you'll barely recognise me. Lots of love to you. Stay sane, stay strong, stay tuned. I love you.